Welcome back to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. It's time for another Grand Arena sign up, so that means we've got ourselves a roster update video, the basic structure for these things, our major unlocks or marquee characters that have been added to the game, Galactic Legend progress, and that's going to be a big one today. And then we're looking at strengthening ships and pilots, looking at Datacron and Omicrons, and then addressing any other lingering weaknesses on the roster that we want to invest in for this week. The major elements that we're working towards right now are going to be Gungans with the ultimate goal of Jar Jar, working towards Mando Bo, and then we are also working towards Lord Vader. And you can see we got a lot of little progress and little things that we're going to be doing in this video, and Mando Bo is going to be one of those things because we can take Grogu now up to 7 stars, meaning we have our Mandalorian characters at 7 stars. So technically we could go up to Relics, build out a squad. What I think I'm going to do is just for 1 week, maybe extend it through the first week of 3v3. I'm going to leave them at gear 11 just to see what we can do with a 7-star version of these characters, see if that's going to be a level where they're going to be semi-functional. Right now they actually are semi-functional for some weaker things that we've been testing and experiencing over the previous 3v3, although during a lot of that time we didn't have a 7-star Paz, or we didn't have we had a low star Grogu, and he could be a little vulnerable at those levels. And that means that we are within striking distance of Mando Bo. Kelleran here is now 122 shards away. That's about 3.5 weeks of farming, and that will put us in line for the April cadence of Mando Bo, and we have all the gear hoarded in advance to take them up to Relic 7 right away. I could technically do it right now with Bam, Paz, and Grogu and be perfectly fine and not affect anything else that I'm working on. We're set. I'm going to hold off again for the reasons that I previously stated, but we're ready and look for Mando Bo next month. Before we start dropping gear, just overall look at the context of our gear hoard. The specifics here don't matter, but if you are interested, that information is on the Discord if you want to see the specific numbers in a more legible way. For the purposes of this, what matters is the elements that are bold and have a color. These are the items that we're actively farming because we have a deficit in the quantities that we are working towards for all of these projects. And what you can see is it's Electrum conductors that I still need a decent amount of, signal data, and also Kairos, but we are pretty much in good standing for what I need for the purposes that I have right now. Now, technically, we do have deficits for what I'm working towards in this Lord Vader column, but that is because Mando Bo is being prioritized, and I know that I have 3 to 4 weeks to accumulate these differences, and these differences are going to be trivial in a 3-week time frame. So I'm pretty safe to drop all the gear now. That's also earmarked ahead for the Mandalorians or other relic things that are really more luxuries. I've got the freedom now to drop things without consequence. So we're doing it. We're taking advantage. And then that's going to allow me to update this. And this section here is going to turn into a Gungan column, or we're going to shuffle things around and start factoring in the Gungan gear, because that currently is left outside of this. This column here is for Lord Vader himself, Mando Bo, and also Bane. And I've got some bad news on Bane. I don't have him unlocked right now because I made that mistake. I think I addressed this previously, but we're going to re-emphasize it here because I did make a mistake along the way, and I am 5 shards short. Now, with the Conquest update that's probably coming on Wednesday, because we have Conquest starting in a week, that information is going to include Queen Amidala and the new Datacrons. It should add Bane to the Conquest store is what I'm hoping. Now, that doesn't follow in the original cadence that CG suggested these things would be released in. Usually I believe Bane would become farmable after this Conquest through the store. So I think I'm going to be able to pick up those shards and wrap them up. Now we are going to get into the meat of things with the Gungans, start dropping the gear, bring these characters up to gear 11 as we normally do, but with Boss Nass I held off because a singular character we couldn't really do anything. Now with Tarpals, with only 2, we still can't do that much, but we can experiment at least in cleanup situations, and hopefully at the start of the 3v3, and definitely soon within 3v3, we'll have the first of the generics to be able to start really testing and exploring what this squad can do in that 3v3 context. Now you can see both these characters at 4 stars. I am grabbing those packs. I think that deal is worth it. I think CG is really trying to make us burn through a lot of our crystal hoards. I do think it is worth doing if you are finishing well in fleets and are able to build up a crystal surplus. It is making a difference, and maybe it will make a difference in how quickly we farm and unlock Jar Jar. Now we'll get started with adding this gear in. Boss Nass as a support character, not really a big deal. It's just 3 Kairos, but in terms of most characters these days, it's just Kairos that are an issue, because now with closing in on a year of the crate raid, a lot of us are getting to some strong surpluses of gear. We will drop on these final pieces, but like, I don't need anything now with Mark 1 tokens. I'm not buying gear. I am pretty much I might start actually buying this piece. This is actually my favorite piece for donations. I'll probably talk a little bit more about that in the future, but what the deal with this piece is, this is actually expensive to buy with Mark 1 tokens. It's just like the Mark 4 back to gel, but what's nice is it's pretty rare, so your guildmates are going to have a surplus and you can request it pretty much guilt-free. And as I'm basically done with this piece, I also donate it guilt-free, but nobody requests it because it's a weird piece that not a lot of characters need. And it's during the old raid system, you would get as many as what you needed passively, and now it's no longer the case. You got to be a little bit more active with it. It's also expensive with the shard shop currency, so that it was a more inconvenient piece to be purchasing. All right, so grab that. Now we'll take a look at Captain Tharples. Oh wait, you know what? We got Zetas. So we will drop the leadership Zeta. We'll take a look here. What does this do? This is long and complicated enough where I will definitely drop. This has been a couple weeks. I no longer remember what any of these abilities do. And then Tharples will drop the Omega. Drop these. I save the Omegas for videos for whatever reason. It's just how I do. Yeah, and true damage. This is like, true damage is like echo stuff, so I like that. Now, with this, that's territory battles. This is actually, when I talked about this in the video, there's a chance we might need to put this one on, depending on what the rewards are going to be on that node and how important it is going to be needed to beat that node with the Gungans. It's a possibility that we're going to need it. It could just be unnecessary, so I'm going to wait and see, but I am open to the possibility that I'm going to have to apply it. Now Tharples, I actually have no idea what his gear is like, because I didn't do the process that I normally do with characters where I break down what gear is needed. It looks like 2 Kairos so far. We'll drop these. The rest of those pieces look easy. We got a 3rd Kairo here, but so that's only a 2 Kairo character up to gear 11. That's easy and straightforward, unless I missed one somewhere. But we'll leave that off for now, because actually I didn't budget for Kairos. I just know I have enough where I don't need to think about it, but I don't want to go crazy. And the biggest step we are taking this week is we're ready to start farming tickets on Lord Vader. We don't have much left here. This was really, I needed to make sure I had the Electrum conductors. I needed to make sure that I had the signal data. But by starting the tickets now, I can potentially have Lord Vader unlocked by the start of 3v3. Now, I'm going to farm him slower than I did Leia, where I did all the 100 crystal refreshes, but I'm going to do it faster than Sith Eternal Emperor, where I was just doing the 50 crystal refreshes and being pretty slow about it. I think we'll do 1 or 2 of the 100 crystal refreshes, and that's because we now have all these new crystal expenditures that we didn't have to account for before, now that we are grabbing those Gungan packs, and that we have the guild event, not the guild event, the Galactic Legend currency to go after for those Omicrons. And so we're going to be a little bit more frugal with our refreshes as a consequence, but we're still going to go after them pretty aggressively and hit 6 GLs on this account, which will then hopefully be the last piece that we need to get into Kyber 1. Because what we have been seeing lately is I will get to about within the range of 100 skill points of Kyber 1, and then I just get smacked back down into the middle of Kyber 2. Or I think I said that right, because we are in Kyber 2 trying to climb towards Kyber 1. We're not going to recut this. Let's take Leia now, not Leia, Padme, up to our Relic 8. not a character I would be doing it otherwise on. Hopefully, this is a character that needs to get revisited. Like, yeah, there's some JMK utility, but that's not critical. It's also not really how you ideally would want to be using a legendary character. So Relic 8, we've hit that threshold. Now we do the same with Arc Trooper. And I was kind of hoping to see if we could hit Kyber 1 without 6 GLs. It just wasn't happening. Although we did get close, I would say 3 times we were in that position where it was, at the start of a week at least, it was theoretically possible. But we have a better Arc Trooper now. Finishing off another one of these milestones. Echo here gets taken up to Relic 7. And my approach to GLs has always been to try and delay them as long as possible. Try to do as much with as little as possible. But the game's changed. What we're seeing is, offensively, I'm doing fine. But because what happens, like if you set 4 GLs, 5 GLs on defense, I can handle that. But what it means is I've got at most 1 left over on defense. And that is just not enough, because with my opponent setting like 4 or 5 on defense, that's leaving them with 3 or 4 for offense, and that is allowing them to just crush my defenses. And this is how things have changed. When players, there was only 4 GLs and all 4 were set on defense, I'd find my way through. They wouldn't have GLs left over for offense, so my defense would be able to perform. That is no longer the reality of the game, and as we get GLs added, the importance of GLs becomes more and more important. GLs actually just weren't that important when there was only a smaller quantity of them. You just had to make sure you had a counter. Now that we have a lot of them, it's all that matters. That and Datacrons, because I can clear, but I can't clear and win all the time. Dooku here gets brought up to 8, and then I think we got Tarkin left, so we'll add the 7. And 1 more. I wonder if this will make this, what this would do for my scythe. If I can do a little bit more and split those ships up. I just don't think it's going to happen. The Chimera Leviathan counter, that version of an Empire fleet, is just so good and effective. It beats a lot of things that I just keep using it. And with that, we can start farming tickets. So the next time that we do one of these roster update videos, we should be seeing me gear up Bane and Lord Vader. And hopefully we're going to see some further changes. The big change that we saw to the roster when Leia was added was I shifted from being on the Kyber 2, Kyber 3 bubble, and now I'm just solidly in the middle of Kyber 2. That was what that addition meant. This addition should be the final push I need to hit Kyber 1. We'll still be punching up a little bit. I like to punch up. It's the context that I want to play in, but I have to adapt to the realities of the game. Shifting into the crons portion of the video, you can see with my Datacrons, I've done a lot with these. I take them seriously, and I went a little crazy on this most recent one with a lot of level 9 crons that I can't actually use, and that is what I need to address. 1, I don't have some of these characters at Relics, and 2, I don't have some of these squads with a full set of Relic characters, and that is how we're going to approach the Datacrons today. These are actually rolled as far as I can go. I could re-roll some things, but I've used up my resources. That's not what we're going to do. But we can round out a squad, and that means like that Jin Cron could be usable, or we could look at the Biggs or the Chirrut. Now, what I want to do is the smallest investment onto a character to get some utility out of here. So what I'm looking at is Baze. Because Baze will allow me to have a squad of 5 Rogue One characters on Radis, and he is a character I can place with Leia so that I can improve that squad a little bit. He could also fit into a Mon Mothma context, or gradually work me towards a Saw context, because I do have the Saw on me. I just don't have that squad or Saw himself in a position where it's a small relic investment. This, though, that's one little character that I can now improve my 5v5 defense a little bit, because I do place my Radis on defense, at least for now. Maybe I'll change that. And we do need to bring him up to Relic 3 in order to use that Datacron. And this adds some increased flexibility and incrementally strengthens my Rebel fighters. And each of these relics is makes it a little bit easier to justify doing the next one. Because a relic like Chirrut right now, as good as that Datacron is, that's a much larger relic investment for me, which that I can't justify. But maybe next time it'll be easier to do it because I have a character like Bane completed, assuming the squad changed. Omicron time, and we are looking at Force Repulse because we want to improve my Starkiller squad. This is one that I've felt for a long time I didn't need, but now that we're seeing the L3 comps of Rey much more common, especially as we climb towards Kyber 1, I want to beef up the squad a little bit, still keep it an option, and this AoE Dispel does help things quite a bit. Although it's still not a guarantee, like those versions, especially if you see the Barris versions, that starts messing it up quite a bit. So we are also going to take him up to Relic 8, which actually was not something I had originally planned today. Now, we could still lose it. I don't mind a cleanup with the way that I have to play, usually having fewer counters than my opponents. Cleanup is still a good situation. I just need to make sure that I am in a cleanup situation. Next major element that we've been budgeting for is I've been trying to beef up my JML to Relic 9 for quite a time. It's been hard to justify placing these relics if it meant that I was delaying somebody, like adding another GL or going after Mando Bo or those other characters. Now that those are safe, I'm going to place this on. This will make a bigger difference in 3v3 for me than in 5v5. Also, depending on certain defenses that we see, the weaker JMLs will struggle a little bit, and I want to start adding out more Relic 9s. I'm going to start with JML, but we're going to be looking at Bane as a candidate, Leia as a candidate. There's a number of other candidates that we'll be fleshing out over the coming months. And we will wrap it up there. That's some big changes, and setting myself up for even bigger changes over the coming weeks. I'm looking forward to being able to utilize those Gungans, and hopefully we get that next one. I believe we will have a Queen Amidala kit reveal coming up, and then I'm going to also try and do a Conquest video. There's certain types of videos I'd like to start doing more frequently, and I think something like that is going to become a regular feature of things. But thank you for watching. Be excellent to each other, everybody. This is still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.